Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over the grayscale trusts and we're going to go over Bitcoin a little bit. So with that being said, let's get it. All right, so you guys can see on the Bitcoin chart, we do actually have another MACD golden cross. This is on the 4-hourly time frame, just so y'all know. So pretty much what I'm looking for here is I'm looking for a close above this trend line here. So you can see it's kind of at the tops of these candles. I could measure it based on the tops of the wicks, but I don't usually do wicks when it comes to breakouts. What I'm looking for is a candle close above these previous candles here at 58,800 and also roughly about 59,000 even. If we can get a candle close above those and also the EMAs to curl up, that would be, in my opinion, a very bullish signal. In the more immediate short term, again, generally speaking, when we do get a breakout of these candles and some kind of golden cross like right here or right here, for example, that usually leads to higher prices. I will show you guys actually a couple examples of that right now. So you guys can see SoundHound recently just had this. Just so y'all know, I did swing trade SoundHound twice, made about $220 on this. I'll go over that in a later video. But as you guys can see, once we got the golden cross right here on the yellow and blue EMAs, it was a massive rip to the upside, went up about 53%. I can also show you guys another example, let's say on Palantir. So Palantir, this one's a little bit more drawn out, as you guys can see, another golden cross back here. So blue and the yellow cross right about in this area. So just go ahead. Well, I mean, if I was just swing trading this is how I would do it. So I'd get in right around the time of the golden cross. Not all three of them crossing, just the blue and the yellow one. And then I would ride it all the way up. As you guys can see, the max profit so far is about 33%. So you can see the moves can be pretty big just after a 4-hourly golden cross. As you guys can see here, we've had the price go down for a long time, and it looks like the price is kind of bottoming out here. So it's either going to fall below the support or rip above the resistance. I'm looking for a rip above resistance. It's kind of at that point where it's about to make that decision. So as long as the price on the 4-hourly is above the EMAs, I will be buying native cryptocurrencies. Now, in terms of getting back into the grayscale trusts, in my opinion, there's still plenty of time to get into them. I'm not too worried about it at this point, but still going to cover the content for you guys. So let's go ahead and go over the grayscale trusts. We'll start with LTCN. So I'm going to go down to the daily time frame here. As you guys can see, we're kind of still sitting on this trend line. It's not making a serious definitive breakout to the upside yet. Once again, I suspect LTCN and BCHG will have its next big breakout once Bitcoin starts ripping to the moon and goes past 74,000. I suspect that's likely when it's going to happen. So we're kind of just sitting along the trend line here. The MACD and the RSI are moving up though, so that's bullish. We did have golden cross as well. And we also had this bullish divergence that I was telling you guys about before. So it does look like it might potentially be playing out now. So now I'm going to go over to the weekly time frame. So we'll look at the weekly time frame real quick, and you guys can see that it's still kind of sloping down here on the MACD and the RSI, although we're not as overheated as we were before. And this histogram bar right here has actually turned a lighter shade of red, which means a potential reversal in momentum, which means this thing could turn bullish pretty quick, maybe over the next few weeks. So with that being said, we did get a break of this this trend line here, but we are still kind of testing in between these top EMAs and this trend line down here. So I would say anywhere in this area right here is going to be support. So pretty much anywhere between 23 to 18 is, in my opinion, at this point is a good time to buy. Not financial advice, of course, take risk according to what you guys can handle. I'm not saying to go YOLO or anything crazy like that. Always keep in mind that risk management is important. So 13 to 15 on support here. And then, of course, you have your resistance 24 to 27. The trend line is going to be roughly about 17 to 18, somewhere in there. I would say roughly about actually 18 to 19 at this point because of where we're at on the trend line. So then you have 54. Above that, you have basically 75, 100 to 135, and 3 to 400 before hitting the high at 510. And we'll talk about those levels more often as we get closer to them later on in the bull run. So measured from here to the resistance zone, you're looking at about, I'd say roughly about 40% gain, all the way up there to that previous control bar kind of area. And once again, for those of you guys that are new here, I'll show you what I mean by this. This is what's known as a control bar. It is the largest candle in a move in this instance to the downside. So once we get above that, then likely it is going to skyrocket up to 75 and then 100 to 135. So 177% move here, as you guys can see. However, if we get down to this lower support here, you're then looking at roughly about 90% and 288% respectively. So BCHG, this one does actually kind of look like it's bottoming out. I'm not going to lie. So we have 4 candles here that are kind of all, the bottoms of these candles are pretty much all right around that same area at $8.20 per share. It does look like there's a lot of buying power going on down there at those lows. Like the bulls just simply do not want to let the price go lower. So that's always a good sign. So BCHG, it does look like it might be about ready to get above this red EMA here. So we could be heading to the top of this resistance zone. That's 12, we'll just call it 1270 at this point. Potential double bottom forming here, as you guys can see. First bottom, second bottom right there. That's a bullish sign. But once again, like I said before, so we have a red candle, green candle, red candle, green candle, but we never got below these lows here, so that's always bullish. Now the question is, are we going to get above these highs? If we do, that, in my opinion, would be extremely bullish for the price of BCHG. We'll probably go up to the top of resistance, maybe even up here to $18. We'll just have to wait and see on that. So support below that is going to be roughly about 670 to about 760. Just measured from the current price, let's say up to the top of this resistance, about 92% at $20, and then the swing high up here, 130%. From the lower support all the way to this resistance here is $20, and then you have roughly about 225% all the way up at the swing high. And then the resistance here, the current resistance is roughly about 10.25 to 1290. So HZEN, first thing I notice here is that the histogram is turning a lighter shade of red, indicating a potential shift in momentum to the bullish side. So we're still within this falling wedge. We are above the EMAs now. That's always a good sign. So the target for the wedge is the top of the wedge. That's 1050. I would say I'm not really seeing much of anything out of the ordinary on the daily here. It kind of looks like it's just chopping around, getting ready potentially to make some kind of big move. So at this point, I would say support still is going to remain 380 to 420. We're looking to break above 620 here at the top of this trend line, as you guys can see. So your resistances are $6.90 to $8 or $8.10, somewhere in there, and then 10.5 at the top. So just from here to the resistance, 59%, and then up to that swing high is 105% move. From the support to the resistance would then be 100, well, basically pretty much about 100%. And then 158.70, or we'll just call it 159%. So ETCG, it does appear actually that this is not going down to the lower support. But if you guys want to know what that is, that's $8.70 to $10, just in case it does go down there and I'm not able to upload for you guys at the time that you need it. That's what the zone would be. So current channel pretty much is the, in my opinion, the buy area. So $11 to $13. You can see a lot of these histograms on the weekly are actually reversing. So this one's also a light red. I don't know if I showed you guys this. So light red, although that's not as consistent as HZEN. And another one, we have our first light red week. So there could be some reversals on a lot of these grayscale trusts and Bitcoin and crypto coming in the next few weeks. We'll just have to wait and see. But your resistance zone is going to be, well, basically pretty much the top of this channel, so 13 all the way up to 16, and then you have roughly about 1775 to 1950. So I'm just going to give a measure move from the current price to the swing high, since that's the biggest move, roughly about 63% on ETCG. So ETH, we had this double top, and it did come back down to support exactly pretty much as we predicted. So the support here is going to be $25 to $29. And then we have this humongous, ridiculous looking cup and handle. I mean, this is basically the cycle peak to the bear market bottom, and then to where we are now, plus the handle right here, and then the big breakout. So the target here is going to be $47. And then in terms of resistance, you're looking at 41 to about pretty much the cup and handle target. I would say about 47, $48 at this point. So to get pretty much where that target is and the top resistance, roughly about 60 to 61%, somewhere in there. So Phil G, this one does have a lighter shade of red on the histogram. However, I do want to point out that we do have a lower low in terms of candles here on the weekly. That's a bearish sign. So if we go lower, likely we might stop at 58. If not, then we're going probably down to $37 to $40, I would think. I mean, you guys got to remember, this thing went from basically the level that I just told you about, that 37 to 40, all the way up here to this level right here. It did a 2,800% gain. So I would expect some kind of pullback after that. This does not shock me at all. So we had an inverse head and shoulders potential setup here, and the target would have been 300, but it clearly hasn't played out. So 400 is still the target. That's the previous all-time high. So if I measure it from, let's say, the current price to the support, you're looking at potentially another 50% drop. But even still, on the bullish side, all the way back to the top would be about 455%. However, if you manage to squeeze in some shares down here at support, which in my opinion would just be, I mean, that would be a steal, because it can only go a little bit lower than that. Roughly about an 880% gain on that one. So GBAT still not making up its mind here. It's still sitting in support. So that's going to be roughly about $8 to $10 on the support. And the swing high up here is going to be 32. We just went over the Fibonacci's in the previous video, so if you guys did not see that, go ahead and check it out for yourself. You can see where the potential max targets would be, kind of above these previous all-time highs, like way up into the stratosphere in that video. So 226, 227% gain on this one. GLIV, once again, inverse head and shoulders. You can see the left shoulder, head, right shoulder, but instead of breaking out immediately, it kind of is just flatlining and going sideways. So 84 would have been the target for that. 80 is the swing high and also the all-time high. Support below, which is where I'm thinking this thing likely is going to go, because this, I mean, there's no break in structure yet. It hasn't gotten above this candle close yet, but it hasn't gotten below this one right here either. So kind of stuck in between the two, but it does look bearish because we tried to break out here, it couldn't break out, then got pushed back down, and now we're below the EMAs, and we can't get outside of the EMAs. So at least in the short term, this does actually look quite bearish. So 1180 to 15 on the support there. If you manage to get some shares on the pullback all the way down to that support zone, all the way to the swing high, you're looking at nearly a 500% gain there. So G-Link, I'm not going to lie to y'all, this looks extremely, extremely bearish. So it is a green candle, but this is a shooting star candle. This is the opposite of a hammer candle. So a shooting star candle is generally a very bearish candle. Okay, so we saw one right here, and then the price went lower. So we got one right here. It didn't go lower immediately, but you guys can see once we got this one, it did definitely go lower. I could maybe pull up some other examples on different charts to show you guys what the shooting star candle would look like in a bear scenario. So we had one here, and it did also go lower. Generally speaking, when you see one of these shooting stars at the top of a move, like near a blow off top or like at a previous resistance or something like that, this is generally speaking when it does actually reverse and usually goes down, because again, that's a reversal signal candle. But anyways, regardless, we tried to break out from this trend line, couldn't do it. Came back down below the EMAs, closed green, but again, still below the EMAs with the shooting star candle. So I suspect likely the support's going to get hit. Again, that's 65 to 85. So the all-time high, previous swing high, is up there at 220. So from support to the previous all-time high, you're looking at about 200% move there. Okay, so GSOL, this thing is just, I mean, man, I'm impressed. This thing is still kicking, shockingly. So the thing I will say is we have not broken structure above these previous candles here. As you guys can see, it is literally sitting right exactly where those candle tops are. We need to see some kind of candle close above these tops in order to get up to this all-time high, okay? That's usually how this works. And we have not seen that. So we got a break of the trend line, but again, no break of structure yet. So until we get that, I would say this thing potentially is still fair game for a sell-off. Although, of course, it could just go up. That's always a possibility. Again, I would not touch this unless it was down here at 167 to 205, and pretty much all the other grayscale trusts are steel, in my opinion, at this point compared to GSOL. So just to give you guys an example of what would happen if this thing does pull back this much down to support, it's a 65% drop. Not trying to scare anybody here. I just want you to understand the risk to the reward perspective. So from support to the all-time high is 220%. So 65% drop from the current price. However, if you just simply held it and it went up to the previous all-time high up here, you can see it's a 23% upside for a 65% downside. That doesn't exactly sound appealing to me. I'm just going to tell you guys like it is. So GXLM, so we did get a break of these lows here. I suspected that would happen. That did happen. So we're creeping lower towards this line. Again, this line I suspect is going to hold at about $25. So 53 to 58.50 is going to be roughly about that resistance. The swing high up here is 70. Do I think GXLM is not going to go higher than 70? No, I do not. I think GXLM could easily go way higher, way higher than 70, probably up into like the $200-$300 range. It would not surprise me. So 179% move from that line to the swing high. Just to show you guys, the previous all-time high for GXLM is not even $100, so there is a lot of upside here to be made. So Mana, okay, so this is kind of interesting. So we had these lows down here, and then we got this big fat green candle that closed above this red one, so that's a good sign. So we did not get a break of, well, actually, technically, we did get a break of structure with this candle, which closed below this one right here, but then we have a green candle closing above this previous candle here, so it's, yeah, it's kind of odd. So in order to go back to all-time highs, we need to get above 3150. As you guys can see this candle right here, if we get a break of that structure level, then likely it is going to come up to at least in that $50 range, I would say. So 1750 to roughly about 20 and a quarter is going to be your support. The previous all-time high is at 70. So, whoops, I don't know what happened there. So from support to the all-time high, you're looking at about 255% move there. Zcash, so this thing had its first candle close above this trend line. That's a good sign. Still not above the EMAs and the resistance though, so I would say this is still resistance, but if I was measuring this as a potential flip zone, I would then call this support. So basically what I would be expecting or anticipating is this is going to go above the resistance, close, come back, retest, and then shoot for the previous swing high. Again, that's not a confirmation move. That's me trying to predict the move. Generally speaking, I wouldn't do that, but some people do that. So if you were looking for support, I would say back down at 310, anywhere kind of in between there and the bottom of resistance would be right about the buy zone I'd be looking for. So 310 to 430. You know what? I'll just go with that. I'm not going to count this as support because it hasn't confirmed yet that it's going to be support. I don't want to, kind of twist you guys up here. So we'll look at this resistance up here. So $8 to $9.60 on resistance, and then 10 and a quarter up there at the highs. So let's just say you managed to pull in some shares somewhere halfway in between, basically the line and the resistance. Excuse me. Going all the way up to the previous resistance high up here, 164% move, and then the swing high, going to be roughly about 183% on Zcash. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.